Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining another chapter of The Whole Story. Yesterday, we heard from Jay Bamer, Jeff Klee, and Sarah Reed on NDC, and if you're part of ARC's NDC Advancement Working Group, you also spent time on Tuesday sharing practical learnings and providing input on opportunities for standardization and process improvement. Today, each of you will have the opportunity to choose your own adventure by selecting sessions across 5 breakout tracks. We hope you take advantage of the rich content, hear from and engage with experts, and maximize your learnings. This morning, we will focus on another aspect of NDC, one that is more strategic, personalization. While NDC may not be perfect yet, it's here and it's growing, as we heard from many speakers yesterday. It's foundational to the distribution strategies for many airlines. One of the critical questions for airlines and agencies is, how can NDC be both a profit maximizer and drive customer loyalty? As we continue this transition, ARC is working hard to champion the success of both airlines and agencies by connecting partners across the industry and offering unparalleled access to data, best practices, and insights. We're working hard to broaden the value of the data in our platform to better support your decision-making. For airlines, this includes use cases supporting revenue management, sales, distribution, network planning, loyalty, and other functions. We're also focused on ensuring agencies have the tools, data, and analytics they need to support NDC. It's a precursor to where the industry is headed, orders. Today's session is focused on personalization. How can sellers create compelling offers that customers value and increase profitability? I'm pleased to welcome Kunal Shah, Managing Principal at ZS Associates, to the stage. Kunal has over 20 years of supplier and consulting experience in travel and hospitality, and we're fortunate to learn from him this morning. Please join me in welcoming Kunal. Thanks.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Okay, yeah, this works. So first of all, thank you, Steve, for that nice introduction, and really happy to be here. And I will say, first of all, thank you to all of you. I was just thinking about the session I had today, which is the 9 a.m. session on the Thursday, which is the last day of the conference, after ARC's very famous, I should say, festivities the night before. And so I am especially grateful to all of you for making it today. So thank you for being here. But in all seriousness, I've spoken with many of you over the course of the day, and just asking about the conference and how it's been. And I think Steve was mentioning earlier to me about the positive spirit and how everyone's really excited to be here and sort of what's to come. And rightly so, right? I think we're at this sort of cutting edge or tipping point in airline distribution, which quite frankly, I don't think we've been in for a very long time. So it's very, very exciting. And of course, you cannot get through any of this conversation without talking about NDC. NDC, of course, being a major disruptor in the distribution space, and very, very, very sort of exciting times ahead. So while all of the conversation, or I shouldn't say all, but most of the conversation is currently focused around, okay, what do we do with NDC? How do we actually, is it here? How do we actually operationalize it? I'm going to take a little bit of a sort of forward-looking take and look a little bit more at what do we do next? So really, I'm going to focus on how we can use personalization more broadly and with NDC to be more effective to drive more revenue. So with that, let's dive in. So a lot has been said about NDC, right? I think we've been hearing this acronym for the last decade or so about, is it here? Will it be here? Will it actually do what we think it's going to do? I think it's fair to say at this point, it is here. And I think it is also fair to say at this point that it is here to stay. I think there are some statistics I was reading. One was something around, I think it's something to the effect of about 20% of indirect business for many airlines is now coming through NDC channels. That's pretty impressive. And that number is growing. There's something else I read from IATA about how 70-ish plus airlines are now NDC certified. And many airlines here in the room, especially many American carriers, are well ahead, European carriers, well ahead of that curve, already sort of having the infrastructure in place to be able to offer differentiated fares, to be able to provide ancillaries and so on. So really a different experience through that. And so I think it's fair to say that it is here. Now, the focus right now is very much on the sort of plumbing, if you may, right? How do I get that infrastructure set up? How do I actually operationalize this? How do I actually implement this? And rightly so. I mean, that is a key aspect, right? You're not going to be able to do anything with it if you're not able to get that plumbing in place. And I don't for even 1 second want to sort of underestimate the level of effort and investment and how disruptive that is for many businesses, whether it be on the agency side, be on the airline side, on the GDS side, and so on. So that acknowledged, right? What comes next? So once that's done, that's clearly not the end game. So we get the plumbing in place, we build that foundation. Where do we go from here? And so that's what I'm going to focus on today, which is really around driving revenue maximization. And one of those tactics, one of those ways in which you'll be able to drive revenue will be through personalization. So let's talk a little bit about personalization and take a step back from NDC. Personalization, this ability to provide a personalized experience for your customers using data and the analytics and the capabilities, the technology we have today, that is not dependent on NDC. You can do that today. And that is we are at, again, a frontier in that space as well with all of the advancements that many of you can do. And so personalization, this ability to treat each individual customer specifically based on their attributes and so on, is independent of anything we're going to see in the distribution space, but you layer on top of that NDC, and now you have a very, very powerful formula, right? So let's take a step back and talk a little bit about what personalization is and how we're able to personalize offers, right? So they think of it in 3 buckets. So you have sort of the who is the customer, you have the when and where, and you have the what and why, right? What are they buying and why are they buying? So in who, there's a few different things that you can personalize on, right? There's demographic data, booking behavior, booking preference, digital activity, and so on. But the one that really jumps out at me, this overlap between personalization capabilities and NDC, is loyalty, right? So in real time now, airlines will be able to see through third-party channels who a customer is, what their loyalty status is, and so on. That's very cool. Because in that moment, I now know who you are and I can personalize my experience. It's a very .com-like experience that airlines now will be able to provide through third parties. That is fantastic, right? So this loyalty status is a key element that now I can personalize by. Then thinking a little bit about the what and the where. Things like payment methods and day of week, time of day. Even things like, are you booking using a cell phone or are you booking using your laptop? Take that one step further. Are you using an iPhone or are you using an Android? Take that one step further. Am I using an iPhone 6 or an iPhone 15? Different experiences, different demographic, different type of customer. So again, that is not dependent on NDC. This is data that is available and can be collected today and personalized today. Then moving on to sort of what and why, right? Length of trip, purpose of trip, number of travelers on trip, and so on. One very interesting thing here is when we think about it ourselves, we think about me, I travel for different reasons and I have different personas myself. So the same customer is not one profile. I travel for business. I want business stuff. I travel with my kids. I want family stuff. I'm traveling for a trip with my friends to go play golf in Phoenix. I want different stuff. So your ability to know who is buying, when they're buying, for what they're buying, why they're buying, matters a lot in terms of how you personalize that experience, right? And so we can use all of these personalization dimensions to really affect traveler behavior across the kind of right side of the slide, right? Across the customer journey. Everything from pre-trip, so like trip inspiration, to things like, selecting a fare or picking your ancillaries now available because of NDC. Pre-trip, post-trip, you will be able to personalize experiences using the dimensions on the left across the traveler journey on the right. Right? So this is very powerful. And like I said, many of these things are sort of almost accelerated, amplified through NDC. But it doesn't necessarily, it's not only NDC generated data that you can do this, it's across all of these different things. So today I'm going to sort of focus on just about a few areas. So one is around searching for a flight, and I'm going to talk a little bit about fares. I'm going to talk a little bit about ancillaries. But make no mistake, right? You can use all of this data across this journey. And many, many companies today are doing that already, in the airline space especially, but across other industries as well, hospitality and so on. So this personalized experience is only going to get more and more as we start to see more and more advancements in technology and analytics and just overall capability to provide this experience at every step of this journey. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about these three areas, and I'll start with this pre-trip searching for flight or trip inspiration, if you may. So the first thing I'll talk about is this notion of sort of marketing content, right? And so with enriched data, deeper traveler insights, and just more knowledge about your customers, you're going to be able to deliver more relevant and compelling marketing content, right? And I think you've seen, many of you have probably experienced this in your B2C world, probably starting to see some of this in your B2B world. You're going to see a lot more of it in your B2B world. I can guarantee you this. So what does that actually mean, right? How does that actually manifest? So I'm going to give you an example of a trip to Los Angeles. So think about marketing a trip to Los Angeles and how you can sort of use personalization, especially, again, like I said, catalyzed by NDC in this new world. So this is a trip to Los Angeles that's being marketed by, let's say, an airline. The first example, let's say, single woman looking for a beach escape to LA from the hustle of New York City. You know this based on their profile, you know who they are. So you present them with this very relaxing beach vacation, words like bliss thrown in the marketing content, in the little taglines. Let's say, for example, through past behavior, through past check-in baggage and so on, you know that it's a father of two eager to take his kids for a trip to Mammoth for skiing. How do you know that? Well, you know where they're flying. You know that they're checking in probably oversized luggage. You know that they're flying during the winter months. So all of these indications start to tell you who, when, where they're flying, what they're doing, what their purpose is. You can start to target them with very relevant content. Or grandparents, maybe taking their kids, grandkids to some sort of LA area theme park. That becomes very valuable information. Now I can target them. So you get the point. What's really interesting about this is a few different aspects, right? Number one, when we say marketing content, we generally think email, right? Getting buzzed with an email. Marketing content is well beyond sort of email content, right? Marketing content now is even potentially, say, for example, an airline buying digital real estate on some website where they target you at the right time with the right ad, because they know that that is who, remember that real-time data exchange, I now know who you are when you come on. So I can target you with some very, very specific content at that moment, at the right time, so that it starts to trigger this buying behavior, right? So marketing messaging now is well beyond just email. There is a lot of sophistication in this space, and it's only advancing. The second aspect of this is that while we talk about this in the airline context, my opinion, and you'll see this cut through kind of my presentation overall, is I think this is a unique opportunity for the agency community to differentiate itself. And I know NDC is a big challenge. I know all the technological issues that you run into and so on, but this is a true opportunity to become sophisticated retailers, right? So what does that mean? You probably have way more information than even the suppliers do. You know about all the other suppliers they're buying, both air as well as non-air. You have all of that information. So there's easily targeted marketing that you can do. You have the data in some form, whether you're using it or not, and you have available personalized analytics and technology and ability to do this stuff. So it truly is a game-changing opportunity, especially in this realm, independent of NDC, to be able to personalize marketing for your customers. And then you put on top of this generative AI, and it's a game changer, right? So to give you a sense, these pictures we generated using one of our tools using generative AI. These are not real photos. And we did it with some very basic 10-word prompts, right? Just wrote 10 words, give us a photo of a lady sitting on a beach, relaxing, or something to that effect, and you get this. So imagine if you put more sophistication into that, the number of marketing copies, the amount of content that you can generate and then use to target is sort of endless. So really this space, this general marketing space, whether it's during travel, whether it's before travel, to inspire travel, whether it's to just send them messages at the right place at the right time, is very, very powerful. Let's move on and talk a little bit about fares, right? So I think when you talk about airline fares in today's world, it is impossible not to acknowledge continuous pricing. Now, continuous pricing is not new. It's not come through NDC. It's been around for a few years now, I think. We know of some famous carriers who have been using it since the pandemic. And so it is very much here and very much being used, and it is changing the landscape. What is continuous pricing? I'm sure many people know, but effectively getting rid of sort of being restricted to the 26 alpha fare buckets and moving on to the sort of linear scale, almost continuous scale of pricing where you can have an endless number of fares, right? Gives you a lot of power to provide a true retailing experience. So what does that have to do with NDC? What does that have to do with personalization? So there's a couple of things that I'll touch on and show you kind of how it works, right? One is that NDC will now empower airlines to offer all sort of entitled fares to individual customers. I'll give you an example of this. So say in the past, right, you go wherever to look for a flight, you get one flight, one option. But as many of you know, through .com experiences, I am able to actually I'm entitled, if you may, to many fares. So in the future, you're going to see a sort of .com-like experience, right? Where, say for example, an airline wants to offer me some sort of leisure fare, some sort of business fare, maybe some sort of bleisure fare. This is true. I actually do have access from some of the airlines for three different fares, and I pick based on what I'm doing and why I'm traveling, any of those options. That now becomes available to you through the third party. Of course, this is an amazing opportunity for the airlines, but this is a great opportunity for distributors in my mind, because now I have access to everything I'm quote unquote entitled to through the third party, or it can be available depending on who makes it available for me. And it really sort of draws me in, right, to wanting to do that. But the other aspect of continuous pricing, which I think is very relevant, is what pros, I think, is tagged as a contextual continuous pricing. I love that phrase, right? Contextual continuous pricing. This notion that I can continuously update my pricing dynamically based on context, based on all of these things that you see here on the left-hand side, right? I can continuously update that because now I have an indefinite number of price points. So previously, I had to jump $50, whatever, or $60 between fare buckets. I don't have that constraint anymore. I can increase and decrease as fast and as often as I want. That is a game changer in this space. So if you actually combine both those things, if you say, A, I'm entitled to all the fares that I'm eligible for, and B, I can dynamically update that based on context, you're starting to see a theme. This is true retailing, right? This is exactly the direction the industry wants to go. And in my mind, 3-5 years later, this is going to continue to advance. You're going to see more and more advancements in this space. So you're going to get that true retailing experience. I was telling somebody this story, and they were like, that sounds really annoying for the customer. I was like, it kind of is for the customer, but for companies, it's fantastic, right? I mean, you think about all your retailing experience, that's what's actually happening. Any advanced retailer, this is basically what they're doing. This is now going to be available for us via the third party. Airlines can do a lot of this through .com as well. But the fact that they'll be able to do it through third party, I think is just a game-changing opportunity. Right, so that's a little bit about sort of fares. And then I'll talk finally, the last example here, about ancillaries and about bundles, right? Which is, of course, another big highlight that has emerged out of out of this NDC environment. So I think there's a lot of conversation about how airlines are going to control bundle creation and pricing. I think that's a hot topic, right? Which I think airlines are very, let's say, very interested or very keen to make that point, right? That the bundle creation responsibility and the pricing of that will be their responsibility. But I think there's a very, very big opportunity for the agency community here as well. So I'll give you a couple of examples just to kind of illustrate the point. So this is just a kind of illustrative example, somebody traveling from Los Angeles to New York, and low loyalty status. Again, you can tell that in real time as that person is logging in and booking. You know that person has this status. So they have low loyalty status on this airline. They're a premium traveler, but they're flying economy on this trip. And you know that they have some occasional in-flight purchases for food and beverage and so on. So you bundle a really nice offer for them, right? A one-time lounge pass, maybe a free check bag, in-flight drink vouchers, kind of luring them to experience your airline more because you want that premium business in the future. It's really interesting. You couldn't do that before because you didn't know who that person was. Now you can. But what's more interesting in this is that on the flip side, if I were a premium traveler, maybe I wouldn't be offered this free check bag because now they know that I'm getting a free check bag anyway. By the way, I still get offers like that from companies where I'm entitled to something, but I still get a marketing ad that tells me that I'm going to get that for free when I get that anyway. It's a sort of disappointing retail experience. That can be avoided now going forward. But that's just for the airline. I really think there's an opportunity for agencies as well, even in this restricted environment of not being able to create bundles for themselves. So here's another example, right? But this time from an agency lens, where let's say somebody's going JFK to Prague with a one-stop, similar customer profile, right? Sort of low loyalty status, premium traveler, but economy, long layover. Now, sure, maybe the airline bundles them, gives them a checked bag voucher and some premium economy or something to that effect. But the agency now has the ability to say, hey, maybe I'll bundle that with a paid lounge voucher, which the supplier, for instance, may not have access to, right? The supplier is only going to have access to that inventory of their own lounge. And in this case, we're able to sort of bundle this and make this a very compelling offer. So even in this sort of very restricted environment where agencies, for instance, cannot actually bundle fares, right? Cannot actually make packages, this becomes a sort of a very useful tool to really drive increased value because you have sort of inventory across all these different suppliers. And so I think, if you take a step back on this particular slide and really think about it, you hear this sort of underlying tone or underlying theme of this retailing experience. And I really do think we're sort of at the cutting edge of retailing sophistication in the third-party space in the airline industry. Simply because we now have this amazing sort of combination of being able to provide that retailing sophistication through technology, through analytical capabilities, through a lot of cool tools and assets that are around. There's some really, really interesting things. Layer on top of that generative AI, it's unbelievable, right? The amount of content you can create, the amount of things you can do at like breakneck speed. And then you layer on top of that sort of NDC and this ability to now distribute all of this content all of these offers, all of these ancillaries that you previously weren't able to do, at least not ubiquitously, it's a real game changer. And I really think that, we talk to our clients all the time about this sort of notion that B2C has now changed the way B2B buyers think, right? This idea that that we've all been primed, right? We all want that sort of prime experience when we buy. So, hey, if I have this unbelievable experience, if I just want to buy some silly toys for my kids on Amazon, why can't I have a similar, if not better experience in my B2B buying process? Right? It doesn't make any sense. I'm buying something for $4 and I have an amazing experience. I'm buying something for, potentially committing to millions of dollars and I have not as good a digital experience. We are at that point now where we can create this unbelievable sort of environment, a true B2C-like buying environment that we previously haven't had. And again, combination of both personalization, technology, analytics, and NDC. And you sort of combine all of that, and we're really at the cutting edge of something very cool. So as you can tell, I'm very excited about what's to come here. And it's really exciting stuff, right? Because if you think about it, NDC is kind of creating this very interesting sort of virtuous cycle, right? Of selling more, learning more, offering better. This notion that, hey, I have more ancillaries that I can sell now, right? So I have more stuff. I can fill the shopping cart, if you may, with more stuff. So that's going to make me smarter, right? I'm going to be able to learn more about you, your preferences, and so on. So as I learn more, I can now offer better. So I come back to you and I say, oh, now I know all of these demographics. I know all of this information about you. I know all of this context. I know when you're booking. You're physically on a booking site, making a booking at that time. So I know time of day. I know so many things. So now I'm learning more about you. And so I can make much better offers. And not just much better, right? More timely offers, the right time, the right place, to the right person, for even that particular context that you might be in. And this sort of virtuous cycle is sort of reinforcing, right? It's only going to strengthen. I keep thinking of a sort of a hurricane analogy, right? Which is, it's just going to keep gathering momentum because it's just going to keep reinforcing itself. But that's just now, right? What's really, really exciting is what's to come, right? Because as this virtuous cycle goes on, guess what? Today we can sell, 5, or the plan at least, or the plumbing in place for NDC is to sell, 5, 10 maybe ancillaries? Imagine a world in which we're selling 20, 30, 50, 100 products, 200 products, right? Non-supplier products, anything and everything that you can possibly dream of, excursions, things like that. That is going to be a game changer in this space. So you're going to sort of expand this virtuous cycle, right? That virtuous cycle is going to then, those products are now going to help you learn more. And then as you learn more, you're going to make better and richer offers. And this is going to get cooler and cooler and cooler over time, right? And so we really are, like I said, I see airlines having a great advantage, of course, that they can now do this through the third parties, which is fantastic. But airlines are doing a lot of this. I can tell you from firsthand experience, airlines are doing a lot of this today through .com channels. A lot of this, right? But what's really interesting is what agencies can do. In fact, I would almost argue that y'all are at a competitive advantage because you can provide a true retailing experience that the suppliers cannot, right? The suppliers can only provide their products and maybe some partners and so on. But you have that full circle. You have everybody in there. And you can actually provide that true retailing experience based on all of this information you're gathering. So really, the people who are going to differentiate themselves, the people who are going to win in this space are the ones who are going to immerse themselves, make commitments, and dive in and invest in digital, invest in the future, because if you do, this will be the separator between who can provide that true customer experience, the people who can actually provide a differentiated buying experience, that .com-like experience, and actually drive disproportionate market share. So I, for one, very excited, as you can clearly tell, about this and about what lies ahead. The plumbing, NDC plumbing, is just the beginning. There is so much more to come. So I'll close with what I sort of opened with, right? I think many of us are thinking right now about the plumbing, and we're thinking about, hey, how do we get this going? And all the capital investments and all the organizational change and so on that all of you are part of right now. Fully understand, and rightly so. But I think there's a very, very interesting theme of what lies ahead. And that is this ability to provide this truly exceptional retailing experience. And we're going to be talking in a year or 2 years at this same conference. We're going to be talking about retailing sophistication. We're going to be talking about user experience and user interface. We're going to be talking about hyper-personalization. Right? We're going to be talking about all those themes because at that point, the foundation is built. The question at that point will be, what do we do to keep progressing? So with that, I wanted to say thank you very much. I will say that I know this is a very hot topic, and I'm sure many of you here have things to say or debates to have. But in 30 minutes, I can only skim the surface. But I will be here for the rest of the day if anybody has any questions or wants to challenge anything I shared or even just discuss. I'm happy to do that. But I wanted to just say thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Lori and team, for this. And I really appreciate being here. And like I said, please do let me know if you have any questions. So safe travels, enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you once again.